Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello to all our wonderful listeners. My name is Tim Dimmick, and I'm going to be your host for today's show. Today we have with us Thomas Russell. Tom has an extensive background in writing and has held positions as an editor for national magazines as well as a freelance writer for many other magazines. Recently, Tom has been a mentor at an organization called 5 Star Life, which is focused on helping middle grade students focus on core values of life. He's here with us today to talk about his recently published book called Finding Your True North, a bullied teen's journey of hope. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. We're happy to have you here. First, let me say congratulations on your new book. I believe the book was released in April, available on Amazon, and I've noticed that you have some fantastic reviews already. So before we get into the book, I always like to ask, the authors, what was your motivation for writing this particular book?
Well, actually, I started writing the book about 4 years ago, but I just decided that the obstacles that I was facing were too powerful for me to overcome, so I gave up on it, just like I did in a lot of things in my life, because I felt like I wasn't worthy of writing a book. And finally, last year, around January of last year, I said, you know what, I'm 52 years old, and I'm wasting my life away, and this is the book I want to write. So I set a goal that I was going to have the book done in April 30th of the same year, and I was on all over the road driver, delivering RVs and trucks and things like that, and I took my laptop with me. I wrote every time that I could imagine writing, in the RV, not when I was driving, of course, but
right.
But after I got done driving in the hotel, in the train station, on the train coming back, on the bus, on the plane, every time that I had the open time to do this, I just focused on it, and it was so empowering to me, because all my life I just felt like I was giving up on myself. When I was an editor of the magazine, I was in my early 20s. I was there for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was successful to a certain point, but it was really hard for me to really look outside myself and say that everybody look at me, blah blah blah, And it was just a title of me. It wasn't anything that I felt like it was a stepping stone for something else.
Right.
And after that job, I wasn't able to work the job anymore. I gave up on my dream of writing in a bigger capacity, and I never envisioned I was going to write a book in my 20s.
Right. Yeah.
I gave up. I gave up on myself, and that's pretty sad. And I just realized after I was doing all these different freelance articles, that only got me so far. It was like 15 minutes of fame from that magazine,
sure.
And then you move on, and then you just feel like, there's nothing out there you're really going to make a living off of. So I ended up getting the restaurant business management, and anybody that's in restaurant management, you just get totally immersed in it. Not that you want to, it's just that's how you live your life, apparently. Yeah, but that's in any career that you take.
Yeah.
So when I got 52 years of age, I decided enough is enough. I'm going to write the book, and I'm not going to write the book to try to get it published, and then get the book in my hands and have it sit in my bookshelf collecting dust, or let my friends and family get the book and I walked away and thinking I can move on.
Right.
Because the message in the book is so powerful to me. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but it's just in the fact that I was just reading it today. And some of the things, it still inspires me, not because I wrote it, it's because it just, when I talk about responsibility of, it's taking ownership of your attitude. Mm-hmm. And I've gone through some challenges this past year, and every time I read this, I say, wake up, Tom.
Pulls you back out.
You have to, it gets me back where I need to be emotionally and psychologically. So.
Right. So share with us what your book is actually about.
It's about a embattled 14-year-old boy who is bullied in school relentlessly by particularly one character. He beats up on him every day, and he has to go home to a dysfunctional family with an alcoholic father. So when you combine those two elements in this kid's life, he has no self-worth at all because his father just beats down on him because he doesn't think he's worthy. And so he decides that he can't take anymore, and he runs away, thinking that's going to solve the problem. And of course, with anybody who runs away, that really doesn't solve the problem. But he ends up going into a town, and because that's the first town he went to, and he doesn't know exactly what he wants to do. But in the town, he ends up meeting characters in the book where he ends up making some mistakes along the way, and each time he makes a mistake, he learns about these 5 core values from the characters that he talks to. Mm-hmm. And all the while, every time this happens, he starts to build up his self-esteem and his self-confidence, and that's hard to do for people because they feel like when you're bullied, you don't have that in yourself because you don't have that, you don't have people telling you that you matter, that you're worthy.
Right.
And so he ends up learning these core values until he gets to the point where he ends up resolving the situation. As all books do, when you write a book, you have to have some kind of resolution.
Sure.
And so he ends up resolving the situation. I don't want to get total detail about it, but it works out. Yeah, it works out for the best for the character. And man, it was a blast.
Yeah, in the book, you also, you just talked about it as well. These 5 core values. What are these values that you hit on in the book?
It's sacrifice, integrity, respect, responsibility, and courage.
Okay. So who is your target audience for your book, and who can benefit the most by reading it?
The target audience was initially for the young adults, anywhere from middle school, but on up. But what I discovered when I started selling the book was the parents who read it were just as inspired as the kids who have read the book. And I didn't really envision that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But it's just the way it worked out, and even the younger kids, 10 on up, can get some message out of that they can take with them.
Yeah, well, I would think the parents, like you said, you probably wasn't in your initial. How do you want to say? It wasn't your initial focus, but. Right. Parents, I think in those situations, especially where children are bullied, and again, it's not that it's focused all around the bullying aspect, as much as it is learning these 5 core values. But, parents so many times don't know, number one, how to react. They may not even know what's going on. So I would think it would be a great read for parents as well. People that, writing this book around being bullied, what are some of the misconceptions that, someone in that position, Tom, might have, about how to take the next step, how to overcome those things that, play on in their mind? What would you say some of those misconceptions are, and how can you address those, or what kind of advice would you be able to give somebody in that position to help them out?
Well, I don't think they're necessarily misconceptions. I think that what I see a lot in the schools that I go to, they have anti-bullying campaigns, which is great. They need to get in there. But what's not really focused on is how the victim is handling this. Yes, they have people who can, counselors and things like that. But here's the problem: when you try to put a Band-Aid on it. Let's say, for instance, someone comes in and they say something nasty and harsh and everything. The bully starts talking things like, in the book I say, Pinocchio gives you competition, or your nose arrives 5 minutes in the room before you do. Those are lame jokes and things like that. And whenever I say this, people think it's funny. But those are the kinds of jokes that I heard when I was a kid, because I felt like that my nose was huge. But the thing is when the bully walks away, he wins, and the person who gets victimized walks away feeling just the self-worth is just shot. And this happens daily when someone says something, and the bully doesn't really care.
Right.
And when I teach the kids, when I talk to them, I said, look, everyone hears the phrase, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I ask these kids, who really believes that? So if they raise their hand and says, well, let me see what happens. So if you do this, you ignore the bully and you don't say anything and you walk away, what happens to you inside? And they feel like, well, I feel terrible. So really, you haven't solved the situation. So really, that whole phrase doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to anybody else who has to do this.
Right.
So I tell the kids, I said, here's what you need to do. I said, instead of standing and walking away and ignoring them or battling back and with verbally or physically, which now makes you the bully, and it's called bully back and forth.
Sure.
What happens then is what I tell them is that you have to take a stand for yourself, but you do it to disarm the person who's berating you. And I tell them, you look in their eyes for about 3 or 4 seconds, don't say a word, and then you open up your mouth and you smile at them, and you say it with a firm tone of voice. You know what? I didn't expect that because I thought you had more character, but get this. I refuse to be offended. I refuse to be offended. And the second thing I tell the kids is, and this goes for adults too, is whether you speak it or not, you say, and I forgive you. And those two things there is so empowering for the victim, because they now have a voice that disarms the bully. And after you say those two things, you just walk away. You've put yourself in a position where you've battled back, where you disarm it, and I guess some people say, that just doesn't work. Well, I said, what's the alternative? The alternative is you don't need to tell someone, and every time you tell someone, you're still going to feel the same way. You battle back, and you think that you solved the situation by battling back, verbally or physically, but you really haven't made yourself feel good. So that's the whole key. If you can't do that, it's going to be so much harder for someone to deal with this, and it doesn't work all the time, obviously, because if you don't have conviction, you don't have the body language and the commitment that what you say really means something, then you're just going to be that much more difficult. And I always tell the kids, and I tell the parents, you two need to practice. You need to role play together. You be the bully, you be the victim, and vice versa. Just to get that feeling of what it's like, and you'd be amazed at the results when that happens.
That's some fantastic advice, I believe. I mean, I've not really ever heard that advice myself, and I would think that would it certainly helps, that person that is being bullied maintain their character, I think, if they can take that stance. And, I think most people probably in that situation, kids especially, they don't know how to react. It's either you're probably they overreact or don't react at all, and it's the ones that don't react at all that probably face the biggest crisis with dealing with it. They lose their self-confidence, or they don't have it to begin with, and it just festers from there and becomes something that, probably happens day in, day out, just like your story talks about. Kids go to school all day. They go to certain classes. There's certain people in certain classes. They can't deal with them or don't know how to deal with them. So it's an awesome mission that you're on. Give you lots of credit for writing the book, stepping out and doing that. Now, you also do public speaking. Tell us a little bit about your public speaking, and is it based around the bullying, or is it based around your core values? What kind of audience do you speak to, and how do you help them?
Well, I go in there, the thing is fortunately or unfortunately, the platform that I have on bullying gets me into the door. And if I told a teacher or principal or administrator that I'm going to come in and start talking about the 5 core values, they say, "Oh, great, that's fantastic. Maybe next time." But if I have a platform of bullying, I can go in there and talk to the kids, whatever age group. I've done kindergarten kids, and I tend to work with what the level of the kids that are there. Mm-hmm. But I speak about the bullying, the things I talk to you there. I speak to the kids, and then I wrap the idea of what the 5 core values, and I introduce these 5 core values as it relates to bullying, and as it relates to building themselves up.
Beautiful.
Because that message gets lost, and I'm able to tie in the bullying and the 5 core values together and say, okay, I probably have a hard time, but I go into things like integrity. I ask kids what they think integrity is, and I hear all these different definitions. And if someone's close to what I want to say, or what I was going to say, I throw them a piece of candy. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, kids in school, they love that. And now everyone starts to engage because they want to say, "I want to raise my hand. I want to answer your next question so I can get candy." And that seemed to work. That just came out of the blue for me. And I said, well, I have to get some kind of incentive for the kids. Awesome. And so I asked them, like integrity, what does that mean? And then in my definition is who you are when nobody's looking. Mm-hmm. And because integrity is so hard for kids to understand because they don't fully understand it. But when you put them in a give them a story, what it means, that's that makes sense,
right?
And then I put a story, I attach a story to integrity, or respect, or responsibility, whatever it is, so they understand my personal reference to it, because I relate to certain stories in my life that I've experienced as it relates to one of the 5 core values or bullying. So.
Yeah, stories are so powerful. It really is the best way to get any message across, and especially to children. And gosh, they're so susceptible to so many outside forces. It's they need somebody, to really be talking to them about these things. So again, your book, Finding Your True North: A Bullied Teen's Journey of Hope by Thomas Russell. Tom, this is available on Amazon, is that correct?
It's available on Amazon, and it's also on Kindle and Nook. And actually, I found this kind of interesting. The book is actually available worldwide online through the internet, and I just happened to Google the title of the book, mm-hmm. And I saw it in Switzerland, or Switzerland is in Japanese. England, all these different countries.
Marvelous.
And it's just it kind of boggles my mind, but really, honestly, you think about it, if you're not looking for the book, you're probably not going to see any benefits from that. But it's kind of nice to know that the book is available worldwide.
Right. So in closing, I'd like to give you the opportunity to let our listeners know how they can reach you in the event they would like more information about you, or maybe about your speaking. Is there a way that they can contact you?
Sure. You can contact me on my email address of T as in Tom, A as in author, Russell, RUSSELL, @author.com.
Great. Well, Tom, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today on the show and give our listeners a little bit of information about your book. And I certainly am sure there are people that will go out there and look you up and pull a copy of that book for themselves and read it. So again, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and much success to you in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.